I've talked all of your ears off about my past with gaming and where it started with me. Now, for many, this was for me to explain my love for the Thousand Year Door and my excitement for its remake, or for Animal Crossing and Mario Kart and my disappointment in their most recent escapades. But it's with great happiness I add another entry to the game from my childhood that returns in the modern sucky gaming industry and makes me happy. Kirby! Kirby is one of Nintendo's icons and is known for his bright and fun platformers that end with you slaying some Eldritch world-ending entity. But I'll admit, I've never been that big into the Kirby series. It's not that I didn't like his platform games, but I always found the Kirby series to be one that's kind of awkward to try and play, more so from a game standpoint. A lot of platformers were on older consoles, which for me, being someone born in the early 2000s, I obviously didn't have much access to, until much older going back and playing them. They're pretty fun now, but growing up I just didn't have access to many Kirby platforming games. While we would eventually get traditional Kirby platformers on the Wii, the series still makes appearances now and then, but a lot of the new age Kirby platformers are just different. I still found myself playing probably the most unusual Kirby games growing up, just based on what was available. Kirby Pinball? Yeah. I tried Kirby Puyo Puyo Tetris, but I don't even know how I played that one. And then the platformers I finally did get to and play, and even the ones I quite enjoyed, were not necessarily the traditional ones. One of my personal favorites is Kirby's Epic Yarn. I guess it just comes down to what I was surrounded with as a kid, or what was available. But there was one Kirby game that, following the formula or not, I always saw as an obscure masterpiece. That being Kirby Air Ride on the GameCube. This is why I mentioned me talking about myself so much in the past. This was yet another one of those GameCube games that I had growing up with. And my goodness, was it one I never forgot about. It was very obscure but very fun racing game on the GameCube. Now, the game wasn't perfect, obviously, but this isn't a video about the original. But what I will say is that I never expected to see the series get a revival like this. While I called the game obscure, it's not that it's super underground. In fact, I'd wager a lot of people, even before this remake, had at least heard of Kirby Air Ride. Whether it be from Smash Bros, or even just hearing about people like me talking about it being a really underrated game. And then the Switch 2 came out, and easily the most surprising announcement with it, Kirby Air Riders, a sequel to Kirby Air Ride. Needless to say, I was sitting pretty. Just last year, I got a remake of The Thousand Year Door, one of if not my favorite RPGs of all time, and now a full-fledged sequel to Kirby Air Ride, a series I thought would never be seen by the light of day again. And from till now, obviously, there have been some ups and downs with certain other racing-related titles, but this one I was excited for. I was scared, of course, to see if it would follow up with the recent Nintendo trends, but I've got to say, after playing it for as long as I have, it is good. So once more, since I've kind of become the racing guy, I guess, at least recently, I want to share my love for Kirby Air Riders with all of you. The game starts off with an opening movie, and its own anime-like jingle. Afterwards, we're set right into the title screen. And man, if there's one thing I have to give Sakurai is he's gotten much better at designing these menus. Me personally, I think he heard our complaints about Smash for Wii U and took them to heart. Now, don't get too overwhelmed as we're going to go with these things in order. So let's just start with the baseline Air Ride, as it's kind of, well, let's just say that a lot of the stuff from this one leans into the other two modes as well. So explaining it here will just help me explain those two as well. Air Ride is the pure racing mode. There is nothing else to it, it's just racing. You pick your star, then your racer, and, well, go on a track and try to beat everyone else in the race. It's about as standard as it gets. Where it stands out, however, is its mechanics. A lot of racing games add depth with things like drifting mechanics, or having a button be pressed that makes you start taking a turn sharper, and rewarding you for having good control and to have memorization of a track. Kirby Air Ride still has that, but in a very unique way. As I said, there's really only one button that you need to press in the original, and that's true here as well. When you press the button, your star will start slowing down, and this meter on the right will start filling up. Upon it filling up enough, you can release it and get a huge speed boost. Now, of course, you come to a stop when performing this, unlike most drifts, which just slightly slow you down, but this is because you intend to hold the button around and turn to change your direction, and not come to a complete stop before you release. Or if you do, sometimes you're rewarded with a bigger boost, based on the star you're riding, of course. It's still a party racer, so we have other mechanics like power-ups that you can get or attack enemies on the field with, which will give you a small speed boost. There's draft, while being behind another player will get you a speed boost. It may not sound like much, but I think that's actually one of Kirby Air Ride and Kirby Air Ride's biggest strengths, is its simplicity. It's the type of game where pretty much anyone can pick up and play it, whether you're super into games or not. Not to mention that the races aren't overly long like they are in some other racing games where you can feel almost overwhelmed. The races are a lot more self-contained, and while there are new racetracks added, they are also returned all of the old racing tracks from the original Kirby Air Ride, which was definitely not necessary but goes such a long way into giving this game more playability. And it wasn't just like a lazy port of these tracks either, they have new textures and everything has just been redesigned. And that's basically the racing mode. As I said, it's basically just racing. If you want to quickly get to the racing stuff, that's fine. This mode really hasn't changed. And that's honestly a good thing. It's meant to be the baseline mode you'd go to if you just want to skip to the racing part of the racing game. But now, we've got to get to what probably has been the biggest glow up in this game, Top Ride. Top Ride in the original was, I'm gonna be honest with you, it was not very fun. At least to me. Its mechanics were clunky, it didn't control very well, the rounds were very slow so they dragged on way longer than they needed to, and just in general, it didn't really feel fun to play. Kirby Air Riders has flipped this around, and now Top Ride is probably one of my favorite modes in the entire game. It's very arcade-like feeling, if that makes sense. But just like last mode, you get to pick your star and your character before participating in a much smaller scale race. It still has the same drifting mechanic, but now there's a new format of controlling. And even better, this new form of control is optional. You can actually pick to have the original version of controlling from the GameCube. Which, I don't know why you'd want that, but if you do, it's really nice that if you were familiar with Top Ride, you have that option. Once again, this was not necessary, but goes to show that genuinely, Sakurai is one of the few saints we have left in this gaming sphere. And when it comes to gameplay, it's fairly similar in terms of the goal. You race around and just try to beat the others. It's a racing game, of course. However, it's here due to its smaller scale and items just being more readily available. It's a lot more chaotic. As I said, it's very arcadey. You get to the end before the others. The tracks are also a lot smaller in size, but that doesn't mean that they don't have unique mechanics that are fun and enjoyable. Each track has their own differences that make each a unique experience. It feels like no matter how many times I play it, each time I play on whatever track, it feels like each different time there's some small changes that really adds to the gameplay experience for me. As I said, it's probably one of my favorite modes to play with friends. One, because you can hop into it very quickly. They're fun, short, and chaotic. In fact, that may be the only negative I'd have with it. Or, heck, one of the biggest complaints I guess I have with the entire game. You can't change your settings in online. This goes for all modes, really, but unless you're in a private lobby, you can't try to match with people who wanted to play on higher time limits or lap limits. I get that trying to match people who have the exact same settings as you would be difficult and would clutter server space, but I don't understand why time has to be one of these options. Why can't we just change it? There's only a few options anyway, it's not like it goes up to 99 or something. Oh, I think it's one of the most important ones. I'd really like to see this have different servers based on just how long you want to play or how many laps as well, at least, for some of the tracks anyway. Realistically, this is more of a minor complaint than anything, and even though it spreads to all the other modes, it's not the biggest deal, but it would be nice to have. I would say this isn't a mode that you're probably going to sit down and play for multiple hours on end. It's one of those ones that you hop on for maybe an hour or so, especially with some friends, and have a good time. And that is a huge honor for what I'd consider to be easily the worst mode in the original. Now, going to one of my favorites. That's pretty big. But of course, it doesn't hold a candle to the main reason this game got a sequel, right? I mean, come on. You all know it's the same song and dance you hear from everybody who played the original one. Well, the only reason to play this game, it's for City Trial. If it wasn't for City Trial, this game would suck, so on and so forth. And yeah, I'm kind of one of those people too. Listen, the original game's mechanics are good, but I'll be honest, without the replayability of City Trial with friends and family, it just wouldn't have been nearly as strong. This is why, if you're curious, City Trial was given its own huge segment in Sakurai's Presents streams, because he knew for a fact this was the main reason that people were wanting this game, to get a follow-up. Quick rundown for those of you who haven't heard, it's basically you all start on a very weak flimsy star that has low HP and has terrible stats. You're launched into a huge open area where you can switch out a star for different ones, and you'll collect these stickers or patches that'll power up you permanently while exploring the city. While doing so, you can also find weapons to hurt other players and steal their items, or events can happen that either really help strengthen your vehicle or could be detrimental to all others, including you. There are other things too, like crystals that you can collect that will lead to legendary machines, giving you a very high chance of success, before eventually, regardless, time will run out and you're launched into a minigame. Typically, in the old games, it was either a drag race, a sort of flight, target practice thing, or fighting monsters. There was a decent amount of variety, and it was fun, but I'll admit, they started to become more so secondary. The main reason you played City Trial was just to see how great you could make your machine, not so much to win the minigame at the end. They've definitely improved the minigames this time around, as now sometimes it's random, you can pick yours, and sometimes you can just straight up get wins for free if no one else wanted to go against you in a certain round. Regardless of if you win or lose, the minigame ends the round, you then see how you do, and you do it again. Isn't that just an amazing game concept? And while yes, it was pretty fun by ourselves in Kirby Air Ride, even in its old form, City Trial excels when you're with other players. The old City Trial had up to 4 people that could play at once. Getting a whole room of 4, a family, or a few friends was always a chaotic good time. Unless you had that one kid who'd come in and complain that you destroyed his compact star and would yell about you to his parents, and then you'd get yelled at by their parents. I'm okay. But it was easily the most fun to be had in the original Kirby Air Ride. And it returns here in force. We were given a whole new map to play in with new events both in City Trial and after new voting modes. And so much more. And if you're wondering why we're skipping past the other 2 modes so quickly, it's so I can get to City Trial. This is where I'm mostly going to be talking about the game. Not just because it's my favorite mode, but because I think it also has the most to talk about when it comes to the game's biggest strengths and its weaknesses. Plus, me saying that City Trial is my favorite even now does not take away anything from the other 2 modes. They have been dramatically improved. You can definitely tell that Sakurai took his time with these 2 modes and made them a lot better than the original. They're a lot more noteworthy, and I don't want to take away from those 2, so just want to get that out of the way. First off is replayability. First off, we're going to talk about this as if you're playing online, because I'm sure a lot of people are going to be experiencing it that way. Each City Trial round lasts 5 minutes, which I'll admit isn't super long, but is longer than most other racing games when it comes to a pure race. That's not taking into account either having to do certain load times or the minigames, obviously. Thankfully, the load times, at least from my experience, haven't been too painful in terms of the online experience. The only part that has been painful is having to match with servers, which is just because Nintendo's servers are absolute dog water. The mode itself is a great addition. New stars, which, by the way, yes, are accessible in all modes, which definitely also helps to give this even more replayability. The stars were also rebalanced, not so heavily to the point where it feels like Sakurai was trying an embarrassment to cover up his older games, Majora's Mask 3D, but rather to make the game, and by extension, each vehicle more enjoyable. For example, the bulk star. This thing used to suck. Yeah, it was okay at racing, but its speed really didn't make up for the fact that it charged up about as well as any lawnmower did after 20 years out in the rain. It just didn't last long. You could power it up and could still win, but it just wasn't fun to play on, especially when you're having to collect all these materials in City Trial. Now, it's not nearly as bad. It's not still really easy or amazing, but if you stick with it, you'll have a really powerful machine. Just don't try flying with that. It'll never work. So you have many different vehicles that I didn't want to just, use in the old game. Now we have ones that were ported over, and I'm happy that they have these new balances. I'm not going to say that there aren't some that maybe got overbalanced, or that there aren't some that are objectively stronger than the others, but it definitely makes it seem as that no matter what star you're on, you at least have a fighting chance. The mode itself plays really well. Easily one of the biggest strengths when it comes to additions to this mode is the player limit. The older version had up to 4 players, which was fine. It was nice if you only had a small group of friends, but if you're one of those people who would like, man, I would love to play this game with a huge group of family members at some sort of event, or to not take turns when all my friends want to come over and I want to play a Kirby game, and then they'll leave the house because I'm trying to make them play a Kirby game. Well, guess what? You can now go up to 16 players. Now, granted, only 4 can play on one Nintendo Switch 2 at a time, but still, this makes each City Trial much more chaotic, and, in my opinion, a lot more fun. It's not unplayable with this many people, by any means, at least from my experience, but it is, as I said, a lot more chaotic. This is also why, if you're playing at least offline or in a private party, you can limit how many players or CPUs are in the round. The game itself is also balanced around it as well. As for example, the more players you have, the more boxes and power-ups and whatnot will spawn, allowing there to be more and more things to collect, and in turn, a higher ceiling for your star to reach for. Or if you're playing by yourself or in a private party, you can even increase the limit from 5 to 7 minutes, like in the old games. Because if you really want your star to be absolutely unplayable, then gosh darn it, that's something that should be allowed. Now, I already mentioned earlier, with additions like 16 players and whatnot, this game feels a lot more party-like than the original. I definitely feel that even more when playing online. All 3 of the modes mentioned now have online lobbies that you can join, and they seem pretty stable. It's quite a lot of fun to be able to play Kirby Air Ride in such massive numbers. And as I mentioned, the only issue I even sometimes had with it was getting into the match because of Nintendo's terrible servers. But I can't overstate just how flabbergasted I am that this game actually exists. But even looking beyond my childlike wonder and amusement with the original, I still find Kirby Air Riders to be a really fun game. However, there was one more mode that was added to the game that I actually touched last, funnily enough. That being Road Trip. Road Trip is a new solo mode added specifically to Kirby Air Riders. There was nothing even close to this in the original game. It reminds me a lot of Smash Bros. Classic or Adventure mode. You progress forward via stages that unlock you stats that can affect your star, just like in City Trial. And you can even do things like swap out your vehicle as you progress, or get different effects while on the road. There's so many things to see and do that I can't really discuss it here, and also I just don't want to spoil everything to people who may be getting this game in the near future. But let's just say there is a lot of love and care in this mode. And while it is fun, and I think it's really good, and the story is good for a Kirby game, I do think it maybe runs just a little long. At least for subsequent playthroughs, anyway. For the first initial playthrough, it's fine, but any other time that you want to play it again, it's not like classic mode that would last maybe 10 minutes. This can go for almost 2 hours, which for me feels a little too long and definitely makes me not want to play it as much. But realistically, that's a minor complaint compared to how much care was put into this mode. And at this point, there's something that may confuse you, though you may notice how I've described every mode as a side mode. You may be asking, well, what is the main mode? And well, that's actually where Kirby Air Riders, I think, gets its main strength. It feels like every single mode is its own contained game. They all play so differently and have different strategies and effects to take note of, yet they are all made well enough for them to stand out on their own feet. I understand that a plank could be that none of them are super duper in depth, that it makes none of them stand out. And I can see that, but in my opinion, I think this game having this sort of balanced minigame-like feel to all the modes is what Kirby Air Ride not only should strive for, but shines in. Kirby Air Riders is not meant to be a replacement for a game like Mario Kart, or a Sonic racing game, Gran Turismo, or really any racing game of any kind, no matter the type, party or otherwise. There are little more series. Kirby Air Riders is trying to be something that video games are starting to lose. It's just meant to be a fun game, and that's sadly missing from a lot of games nowadays. Do not get me wrong. There are a lot of really good titles still coming out, specifically from the indie genre, but a lot of these are more aimed towards the solo player, focus more on story-driven titles, which are fun, and I really enjoy those, but one of the main joys of video games, to me, is how you can connect to other people. And with the holiday season right around the corner, I definitely could see myself pulling Kirby Air Riders out to play with some friends and family that may come visit. And that's where its true strength really shines. It's a game that you can play with your friends, your family, or online even with strangers and have a fun time. And that's what it exactly needs to be. It doesn't have to have the most in-depth mechanics that make someone try super hard intensely, but it doesn't have to be a baby game for babies that doesn't feel like any thought was put into its mechanics. And if that's not the game you want, then there are plenty of ways to customize the experience around how you want to play. Whether you're just somebody who likes the original, only really wants to play City Trial, then you can play like that. If you're somebody who wants to try the new modes, then go right ahead, they're really fun. And you can always change the settings around how you want to play. You can get exactly what you want out of Kirby Air Riders. Is it the best racing game of all time? No, but that's not what it's trying to be. It's not trying to be something that'll have everybody coming over and testing their skills to get 0.1 second and shaving it off in a time trial or something. It is meant to be a love letter to people who loved the original, to give it a fresh coat of paint for people to enjoy in the modern era. And heck, this video, I'll just be blunt, is more or less just a short, quick little way of me trying to tell you why you should get this game. Or at the very least, if you see a decent deal, give it a try. There are so many things I didn't talk about that are still here, so let's just go over a few quick ones really fast. Just like the old game, there's a checklist to basically, well, check off its achievements. They test you to do certain things, and there's ones for each individual mode, including the online mode. Upon doing so, you can get rewards such as new characters, new stars, decals, which we'll get back to in a minute, music, and even colors and skins for your characters, or stuff to even change your little racer ID. They are not necessary, but they do all add up into making this game a lot more replayable. It also gives you something to strive for, as you play something that's obviously something that other games try to do and should do. Easily one of my favorite things I've seen in this game is the customization features. You can customize your stars with decals, paints, accessories, and different effects that will give it a different aura. And colors. All this changes allows for even more expression of oneself. But even beyond that, it gives you just another outlet of fun for people to have before you get into the races with your friends, for example. Let them make their own warp stars real quick. Whether they make something quite silly and impractical, or they make a genuine attempt at a really cool vehicle that they love. The design of there is so much freedom to be had. And especially considering the tools presented, there is so much you can create. Heck, you could even go online and actually straight up using the in-game money, which you earn just from playing the game and can't buy, by the way. You can purchase other people's designs for said stars, should there be something you really like. And if you go on right now, you already see just how creative people have gotten with this mechanic in just a few weeks. This is what I meant when I said you can feel the Smash Brothers in this game. From these little extra side modes to the main modes themselves, the music player, the stat screen. Every small thing here feels like a Sakurai game. This game is a dream come true to hundreds, if not millions, of players of the original who fell in love with that silly little title on the GameCube. I could go on and on about the cool things I really enjoyed about each individual small detail, but I think it's only fair that I give a few criticisms before I wrap this up. Just so that way I can cover all my bases as a fair video game reviewer. What a lucrative title. Because if there's one thing you all know about me, it's that I am always fair with my judgments, and I have never once let my emotions get the better of me in any way. First off, the events. I love the events in the original. There's always something to look forward to. I mean, there was a few exceptions, especially the fact that, there were some really not good ones, but I loved the events all the same. Not to mention there are new ones, and just like the original, some of them are not really fun. There are some that are meant to hinder players, and that's fine. I don't really mind that. I think that adds more variety and flavor to these events. But I feel like the ones that affect the players should be given at least somewhat a warning. Specifically the one where all of your players' HP goes down to 1 and you just have to survive. For the most part, I think a lot of people just play it the same. Just hide because, why would you risk engaging when you're that low 1 HP? But there are some players who are immediately going to get killed if they're playing against CPUs, or heck, even if you're just in the area where you can take damage or you're flying above the void and fall in. Again, I think regardless, this should at least be given like a 10-second warning, like, hey, in 10 seconds, you're all going to go down to a few HP, or something. Something that clearly incentivizes players to at least be paying attention outside of just, driving, I guess. And I already know they can do this because one of the new types of events, which is a race and fight, both have a timer ticking down. Similarly, there are other new events, just like race or flight, that also have the timer ticking down. There are other events too that aren't really interesting either, or fun for that matter, but that's more of a minor thing than anything else. Really, the biggest complaint I have is just the fact that some of the events are just so worthless. And I don't mean in terms of what you get for doing them or the effect they have on the game. It's more so just how short they are. Like, some of the events only last what feels like 10 seconds, for example. There are sometimes where an event will happen like, I don't know, let's say the boss type enemy appears. It gets this big intro, you can fight it for about 25 to 30 seconds, and you either take it out and get a bunch of items, or flees. And I think that works fine. It encourages people to either completely ignore it, as they don't want to get beat up by said boss or the players trying to beat it up, or you can go and attempt to defeat it, and the other players attempt to get some sweet loot. I think this works fine. But then there are the others that just don't last long. For example, all boxes contain the same item. When I'm playing the game, it feels like this lasts maybe 10 seconds. I get it, maybe because of that soft cap of how many items, people have. Maybe they don't want people to get like 500 charges or something really good. But there's two things that make me kind of disagree with this. One, there's already a soft cap in place of how many items you can have. Two, the time limit is way too short. And online, for this to be super imperative to being unfair with the time limit, of 5 minutes, you just wouldn't have that much time to really get them anyway. And then 3, it seems very unlikely that with the amount of players, someone's going to find 20 boxes within even, 1/3 of the time that they're given. And the main reason I say this is my biggest complaint is because whether I'm playing with friends, family, CPU, or online, I find that a lot of the events I just completely ignore. Not because I don't want to engage or encourage these cool things with them, but they just last so little time. Like, items appearing on the rails. Oh, that's cool. I'd like to get some of those. If I could get there within the 10 seconds the event goes on for. Basically, I equate the event's time limits to your average lifetime of a Chevy. They're not going to last too long. And at least for me and my playstyle, I find that to be a negative overall. Again, maybe this could be something that could be changed in settings rather than just an on or off. You could change the interval between them or something, but the new map. It's really cool, and it's really fun. It has this new way of playing the mode compared to what I grew up with, but the map is really fun. Beyond that, though, it still does have its issues. For example, when you're with all 16 players, despite its size, it just feels very small. Like, you can't even go 2 feet without running into another player, which, again, I get, makes sense. It's 16 players, that's a lot to fit in a tight area, but this makes it feel like you're not really getting anything done if you're just trying to get from point A to point B. As by the time you get from one area to another, there's probably going to be at least 3 other players already swarming over one single defense up. The game does try to balance this with more players having more items spawn in, but it still feels a little unfair to all sides involved. And again, I really don't know what the balance choice would be for this, because I'm not a game developer by any means. I'm just someone who complains about them. That's, I guess, where my lot in life is. And then there's other factors of map in terms of areas that I think a lot of people just never bothered to go to, at least once or twice. The original had some areas like this that you'd only really want to go to once, maybe, like per round. But there's at least a reason to drive by and take a gander, as it usually wasn't super out of the way just based on how the map was built. And you could potentially get something like the crystals, as a lot of the crystals for the legendary machines were in set locations purposely put out of the way, so that way they were hard to get. Well, that spawn criteria is completely been thrown out of the way, so they can appear literally anywhere, which, yeah, I guess that means that these areas, like the inside of the huge skyscrapers and friggin', I don't know, the inside of the pirate ship, could have them, but these areas are just so out of the way. And generally, even if you go there, they only have 1 or 2 items that they really have. It doesn't feel amazing to go to these areas and feel out of the way, like you're wasting time. And I'll admit, I'm very aware, I'm just doing the I'm a baby complaint, as I don't think this is one that really needs to be changed. It's more so just me saying that the new map has its issues. And I'm not saying the old one was any better, by any means. It had its issues too, just to get that out of the way. But speaking of, why can't we have the original map here too? They ported all the racetracks. Why not the original City Trial map? Maybe they thought it'd be too small for 16 players, I guess? I mean, maybe I could see that, but as I said, even this new map feels kind of small for 16 players. Heck, even with only 4 players, the same amount of the original, it feels about the same size, honestly. There are a few other small things I could talk about that may be a little annoying on this mode or that mode. But again, in reality, when I look back at the big picture of my time with the game and the money I spent on it and just overall as a package, I guess, it just feels rather niche. There are some that are a little bit more annoying than others, but I don't think that any of these pull, really any judgment away from the game to an astronomical degree. And I guess that leads me to the point of making this video. The last few videos have all had a purpose to some degree, even if some of them are more spur of the moment compared to how I wanted to originally release them. For example, there was the original Mario Kart one, where I talked about my disappointment with it, and compared to its price, it was one that mostly just spawned out of me due to my genuine enjoyment of the series, and then my genuine disappointment as to where the series was going thanks to this new game. Sonic Racing then came around, and I really enjoyed it. And I think still to this day, if you're looking for a more serious but still lighthearted party racing game that you can take a little bit more seriously on your own, but still have some fun with, then Sonic Racing Crossroads is an amazing choice. Basically, what I'm trying to say is this. If you have a Switch 2 console, or you're getting a Switch 2 console, there are 2 games that are actually good for Switch 2. Not that they're necessarily worth getting a Switch 2 specifically for, but more so they make the Switch 2 feel more like a competent console, especially for the price of things. That being Donkey Kong Bonanza and Kirby Air Riders. So with Christmas around the corner, I'll give you my advice. If you're looking for something like Mario Kart, but don't really want to give Mario Kart World the $80 or $90 it needs, you've heard the negative things, seen the gameplay, and just don't think it's going to be your thing, go get Sonic Racing Cross Worlds. It's on Switch 2, Switch 1, PS5, PC, it's on so many different things, and it's a really fun game. But if you have a Switch 2 and are looking for something a little bit more lighthearted and fun that can still be enjoyed, but isn't as familiar as the Mario Kart series, I implore you to give Kirby Air Riders a chance. It is a really fun game that I thoroughly have enjoyed my time with, and I'm sure many others will as well. Well, with that, that's the trilogy of racing games, at least the ones I want to make videos on. I didn't really expect them all to be quite like this, but I'm more than happy with how it turned out. And I can finally start working on other projects outside of these racing games. Oh, that's right. I should probably talk about prices before we go off. How much is Kirby Riders? Let's look. $70. Yeah, I mean, I still think it should be like 60, but yeah, it's definitely more, of a $60 game. But it's still at least a complete package, so, I feel like it's reasonable enough, I guess. I still think 60, but 70 is fine enough. Oh, yeah, wait, that's right. They released Amiibo, right? I really like, actually, Amiibo. I don't like all the games that they're attached to, or like their effect in-game, but they look really cool, and they're well-made, and I just really like Amiibo. Especially now time's gone on here. I feel like they're only getting better. Oh, that's right. Actually, I think I have one of them right here. Let's take a look at this bad boy. Oh, look at that. It has a huge box and everything. I mean, the main mechanic of these ones is not that great, but, I mean, you never really buy the Amiibo for what they can do in-game. It's more so just a collectible. Something really interesting is you can actually maneuver the riders around. I mean, I only have the Kirby one here right now, but still, it's kind of cool. Either way, it's a nice little collectible, and I like this little mechanic on it of being able to move around the riders. It's kind of neat. Oh, actually, wait, how much was this? Holy mother of God. In all seriousness, thank you all for the support on this trilogy of videos. I know I had that Animal Crossing one in between, but I truly appreciate all of your guys' support, and to see how much this channel has grown over that time is insane to me. It's very humbling, and I appreciate every bit of support and every comment and all that lame YouTube stuff. And I appreciate it even more as time goes on, as I know I've been inconsistent, and it's probably going to get worse because of college and work. But I am still going to be doing videos as long as I can. I find it to be fun, and I love talking about this media that means so much to me. All that being said, thank you from the bottom of my heart for watching. I hope to see you all in the next one.